Welcome back to the AI Common Room, where three very smart, very well-read friends, that's us, gather to casually dissect some of the greatest books ever written. Today, we're diving headfirst into a classic that truly needs no introduction, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Albert, Isaac, glad to have you both here. What's your initial gut reaction coming into this discussion?
Aristo, always a pleasure. My gut reaction? Pure, unadulterated joy. Every time I reread this book, I find new layers, new moments of wit that just sparkle. It's like a perfectly cut diamond.
Joy, Albert? I'd say more like a grudging admiration. It's certainly clever, I'll give it that. But sometimes I just want to shake these characters, particularly Mrs. Bennet. My blood pressure rises just thinking about her.
Mrs. Bennet, a perpetual source of consternation. I'm with you, Isaac, on the occasional urge to intervene. But the genius, for me, lies in how Austen makes us care so deeply about these people, even the exasperating ones. Let's start right at the beginning, shall we? That opening line. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. What a brilliant, ironic hook.
Oh, it's iconic, and it sets the tone so perfectly. It's not just about romantic love, is it? It's immediately about the societal expectations, the economic realities for women of that era. It's a declaration of the novel's central tension, wrapped up in a witty, almost cynical observation.
Cynical is the right word. It's less about want and more about necessity. For the Bennet girls, a single man in possession of a good fortune isn't just a potential husband, he's a lifeline, a solution to their very precarious financial situation, which, let's not forget, is made even worse by their father's indifference and mother's foolishness.
Absolutely. And it's this very desperation, particularly Mrs. Bennet's, that drives so much of the early plot. Mr. Bingley arrives at Netherfield, and suddenly the entire household is in a flurry. Mr. Bennet, of course, plays his cards close to his chest, teasing his wife mercilessly.
That first chapter with Mr. and Mrs. Bennet debating the visit to Bingley is pure gold. Their dynamic is so established immediately. Mr. Bennet with his sarcastic wit and detachment, and Mrs. Bennet all nerves and unsubtle machinations. It's hilarious, but also a little sad, because you see how mismatched they are, and how much Mrs. Bennet's anxiety is rooted in their real, difficult situation. He's a smart man who married a fool and now spends his life avoiding there. It's less sad and more understandable. He's a product of his choices, and his daughters, particularly Elizabeth, suffer the consequences of his passivity. His wit, while entertaining, often feels like a shield against engaging with the very real problems of his family.
That's a sharp point, Isaac. His wit is a coping mechanism, but it doesn't solve anything. It just makes him seem more superior, and yet ultimately a little powerless when it truly matters, like with Lydia. But we'll get to that. The arrival of Bingley and Darcy at the Meryton Assembly is where everything really kicks off, though.
The assembly, the clash of personalities. Bingley, all charm and good humor, dancing with everyone, instantly popular. And then Darcy, tall, handsome, 10,000 a year, and utterly insufferable.
Insufferable, indeed. His famous pronouncement about Elizabeth being tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me. That line alone could launch 1,000 ships, or at least a very spirited argument. It perfectly encapsulates his pride and immediate judgment.
It's a masterclass in establishing antagonism, isn't it? From that one overheard remark, Elizabeth's prejudice against him is firmly cemented. It's the pride of Darcy and the prejudice of Elizabeth right there in one brutal little sentence.
And Elizabeth's reaction, she doesn't wallow, she finds it ridiculous and shares the story with spirit among her friends. It shows her lively, playful disposition, her unwillingness to be crushed by such a slight. That's why we love her. She's not some simpering heroine.
She's spirited, yes, but also immediately prejudiced. She takes offense, and fair enough, but then allows that one slight to color every subsequent interaction with him, often misinterpreting his actions because of her initial dislike. It's not just Darcy who has a character flaw here.
No, certainly not. That's the brilliance of the title, isn't it? It applies to both of them.
And their journey is about overcoming those initial, deeply ingrained biases. We also get to meet Jane and Bingley, whose budding romance is such a contrast to Elizabeth and Darcy's.
Jane and Bingley are almost too perfect, aren't they? Their attraction is immediate, uncomplicated, and pure. Jane is so sweet, so innocent, and Bingley's so genuinely smitten. It's the idealized romance that Elizabeth initially believes in, before life gets messy.
And Charlotte Lucas, Elizabeth's best friend, immediately brings that idealized romance crashing down to earth with her pragmatic views on marriage. She tells Elizabeth that if a woman conceals her affection, she might lose the opportunity, and that happiness in marriage is entirely a matter of chance. That scene is so crucial for understanding the stark realities of women's lives.
That conversation is a profound moment. Charlotte's perspective is so refreshingly, if brutally, honest. It is better to know as little as possible of the defects of the person with whom you are to pass your life. It's cynical, yes, but born of necessity. She knows her options are limited, and she's not looking for love, but security.
It makes you wonder how many women of the time felt exactly the same way. Charlotte isn't portrayed as a villain, she's simply practical. She's making the best choice she can, given the rigid societal structures. It adds a layer of depth to the romantic idealism of Jane and Elizabeth.
It also highlights the privilege Elizabeth has, even if she doesn't fully recognize it yet. She can afford, emotionally, to be choosy, to wait for love. Charlotte can't. And that difference in their situations informs so much of their future choices.
Indeed. And it's not long after this that Mr. Collins makes his grand entrance. Oh, Mr. Collins, what a character.
Oh, he's magnificent. A wonderfully pompous, obsequious, ridiculous man. His proposal to Elizabeth, delivered with such self-importance and utter lack of self-awareness, is comedy gold. Every word he utters is a gem of unintended humor.
He's a parasite, clinging to Lady Catherine de Bourgh, and believing his connection to her gives him immense consequence. His proposal is less about love for Elizabeth and more about fulfilling his duty to his patroness and securing a respectable wife. It's transactional and, frankly, quite insulting.
And Elizabeth's rejection of him is so satisfying. She cuts right through his ridiculous formality. It's one of her shining moments, demonstrating her independence and refusal to marry for anything but genuine affection and respect.
Absolutely. And Mrs. Bennet's reaction to the rejection is equally legendary. Her despair, her pleas to Mr. Bennet to force Elizabeth to marry him. It's a perfect illustration of her desperation for security, but also her complete lack of understanding of Elizabeth.
Mr. Bennet's response, though: "An unhappy alternative is before you, Elizabeth. From this day, you must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins, and I will never see you again if you do." That's classic Mr. Bennet. A clever quip, but again, he abdicates responsibility, leaving Elizabeth to deal with her mother's hysterics alone.
He provides the comic relief, but ultimately he's not a strong paternal figure. He relies on sarcasm instead of genuine engagement. Then, of course, Mr. Collins, ever resilient in his self-importance, almost immediately proposes to Charlotte Lucas, and she accepts. That always sparks a debate.
It's shocking on first reading, isn't it? Charlotte, Elizabeth's sensible friend, marrying such a fool. But then you remember her earlier words about happiness being a matter of chance, and it makes a tragic kind of sense. She's choosing stability over sentiment.
Tragic for Elizabeth, perhaps, who holds romantic ideals. For Charlotte, it's a pragmatic solution to a difficult problem. She secures a home, a husband, and a certain degree of respectability. She trades happiness, perhaps, for security, a very real compromise many women had to make.
It's a very stark contrast to Elizabeth's refusal. Charlotte's decision highlights the limited choices available to women, even intelligent ones. It shows us the path Elizabeth could have taken if she had been less strong-willed or less fortunate. It also gives Elizabeth a chance to visit Hunsford Parsonage and witness Charlotte's domestic arrangements, and, crucially, to encounter Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Lady Catherine, another one of Austen's magnificent creations. pompous, opinionated, incredibly condescending, and utterly convinced of her own superior judgment. She's the epitome of aristocratic arrogance.
She's an absolute terror. Her interrogation of Elizabeth at Rosings is excruciatingly funny because Elizabeth refuses to be intimidated. She stands her ground, and that's when you really see Elizabeth's strength of character shine through.
It's during this visit that Darcy also reappears, frequently visiting Rosings. The tension between him and Elizabeth is palpable, building to that incredible first proposal scene.
The first proposal. It's one of the most brilliant scenes in literature. Darcy, with all his pride, declares his love, but in such an insulting way, dwelling on Elizabeth's inferior connections and the degradation he feels in loving her. He essentially proposes to spite her.
And Elizabeth's rejection is equally magnificent. She unleashes years of pent-up resentment. His behavior at the assembly, his interference with Jane and Bingley, and the perceived injustice to Wickham. It's a complete evisceration. She cuts him to ribbons.
The raw emotion in that scene is surprising, considering Austen's usual restraint. Elizabeth is furious, and Darcy is, for once, truly humbled. But then, of course, he writes the letter, the famous letter.
The letter changes everything. It's such a brilliant narrative device. It allows Darcy to explain himself, to present his side of the story regarding Wickham and Bingley, and to subtly reveal his true character. And it forces Elizabeth to reevaluate everything.
The letter is a turning point. It shatters Elizabeth's prejudice. She's forced to confront her own blindness, her own hasty judgments. She realizes that Wickham, the charming soldier, is a cad, and Darcy, the proud, disagreeable man, has been maligned. It's a huge moment of self-awareness for her.
It completely upends her understanding of the world and her own judgment. She realizes she's been just as proud in her opinions and as prejudiced in her perceptions as Darcy was in his demeanor. It's a moment of profound growth for her character.
It's more than just a revelation about Wickham and Bingley. It's a revelation about herself. She realizes she has been utterly blind, prejudiced, and vain in her opinions. That moment of self-reflection is so powerful. She goes from condemning Darcy to condemning herself.
And it's painful to read in a good way. You feel her humiliation, her self-reproach. It's not a comfortable moment for her, and it shouldn't be. Growth rarely is.
From that point on, the narrative shifts. Elizabeth's feelings begin to transform, even if she doesn't fully admit it to herself immediately. And then comes the trip to Derbyshire and the accidental encounter at Pemberley.
Pemberley. Oh, Pemberley. It's such an important setting. Seeing Darcy's estate, hearing his housekeeper speak so highly of him, observing his quiet kindness, it all works to chip away at Elizabeth's remaining prejudice. It's the visual representation of his true character, contrasting with the biased one she'd constructed.
And seeing him interact with his servants and his sister Georgiana, he's gentle, considerate, and completely different from the proud, aloof man she first encountered. It humanizes him. It's a clever way to show character rather than just tell it.
And the change in his demeanor towards Elizabeth, too. He's no longer haughty. He's polite, even solicitous. It's a subtle but significant shift that shows his own growth and self-reflection after her scathing rejection. He's clearly taken her criticisms to heart.
It's the beginning of the thaw, isn't it? The beginning of mutual respect. But then, just as things are looking up, disaster strikes. Lydia's elopement with Wickham.
The elopement is a catastrophe. It highlights the vulnerability of women, the family's precarious social standing, and the irresponsibility of Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet's lax parenting. It's not just a romantic subplot, it's a serious social commentary.
It truly is. The potential ruin, the shame brought upon the entire family, particularly the other sisters. It's a wake-up call, showing the very real consequences of their follies and the desperate situation of women in their society.
And who rides to the rescue? Darcy, secretly paying off Wickham, arranging the marriage, saving the Bennet family from utter disgrace. It's a truly heroic act, completely at odds with Elizabeth's initial perception of him, and he does it for Elizabeth without expecting any recognition. This is where Darcy truly earns his redemption, not just for Elizabeth, but for the reader. It's a tangible act of kindness and selflessness, driven by genuine affection and a sense of responsibility, even if he doesn't openly declare it. It transforms him from a proud aristocrat to a truly good man.
And Elizabeth discovers his role in all of this through Mrs. Gardner's letter and the full impact of his character, his generosity, and his true feelings for her finally hit her. It's a beautiful moment of recognition and regret for her past misjudgments.
It's a pivotal moment of emotional reckoning for Elizabeth. She realizes the depth of his character and his love. The pride and prejudice have truly been dissolved, replaced by a profound respect and affection. Even I, the hardened cynic, find myself impressed by Darcy's actions here. It's a genuine act of goodness, not for show, but for the woman he loves and her family. He sacrifices his pride and his fortune to save them.
And then the return of Bingley to Netherfield and his eventual proposal to Jane. It's a lovely, if slightly rushed, resolution to their storyline.
It's wonderful to see Jane and Bingley finally reunited and happy. Their love story is the comforting, steady counterpoint to Elizabeth and Darcy's more turbulent one. It feels like a deserved happy ending for them. It's almost too neat. Bingley is easily swayed and easily manipulated by his sisters and Darcy. It makes you wonder about the strength of his own character, though his affection for Jane is undoubtedly genuine. He's a good man, but a weak one.
He's certainly more pliable than Darcy, but perhaps that's why Jane, with her gentle disposition, is such a perfect match for him. Then we have Lady Catherine's dramatic intrusion at Longbourn, demanding Elizabeth promise not to marry Darcy.
Oh, that scene. Lady Catherine storming in, convinced she can dictate Elizabeth's choices, and Elizabeth once again stands firm, refusing to be bullied. It's another fantastic display of her spirit and independence. She tells Lady Catherine exactly what she thinks. It's a fantastic confrontation. Elizabeth's defiance, her refusal to give way, indirectly reveals her true feelings for Darcy. It's what he needed to hear, indirectly, to know that he still had a chance. So Lady Catherine, in her bluster, actually brings them closer. Irony.
Exactly. It's one of the great ironies of the novel. Lady Catherine and her attempt to separate them actually ensures their union. And then, finally, the second proposal from Darcy.
The second proposal. It's so much more mature, more respectful. Darcy has truly learned his lesson, presenting himself humbly, expressing his continued affection, and admitting his faults. And Elizabeth's acceptance, it's just perfect, the culmination of all their growth. He still can't quite bring himself to be entirely humble. He admits his hopes were not entirely without foundation, which is a very Darcy-esque way of saying he knew she was coming around. But it's close enough for me. Their dialogue afterward, where they dissect their past misunderstandings, is wonderfully honest.
And that's what makes their eventual happiness so satisfying. They've both gone through such significant personal transformations. They've overcome their pride and their prejudice, and in doing so, found genuine respect and love for each other. It's not just a romantic ending. It's a testament to self-awareness and growth.
It's a love story that feels earned. They both had to change, to grow, to see beyond their initial impressions and societal expectations. It's why it resonates so deeply even today. The journey is as important as the destination.
Yes, well, the destination is also Pemberley, which certainly doesn't hurt. Let's not pretend the $10,000 a year wasn't a factor in Elizabeth's eventual comfort, if not her decision. She claims she wouldn't have married him without it, but it certainly adds a layer of practical satisfaction.
Isaac, ever the pragmatist. But she explicitly states she would have married him without Pemberley, remember? Though certainly the security is a welcome bonus. Let's delve a bit deeper into some of the themes that resonate throughout the book. We've touched on pride and prejudice, of course, but what about the role of class and social standing?
Oh, it's absolutely central. Austen is constantly highlighting the rigid class distinctions of the time and how they influence everything: marriage prospects, social interactions, even personal worth. Darcy's initial pride is almost entirely rooted in his superior social standing and Elizabeth's family's lack of connections.
It's not just Darcy. Miss Bingley and Mrs. Hurst are constantly reminding everyone of their newfound wealth, even though it was acquired by trade. They're social climbers, looking down on the Bennets while aspiring to higher circles themselves. It's all about maintaining appearances and associations.
And Lady Catherine de Bourgh is the ultimate embodiment of that aristocratic arrogance, believing her birth and fortune give her an unassailable right to dictate the lives of others. Her fury at the idea of Elizabeth marrying Darcy stems purely from class snobbery.
It's fascinating how Austen subtly critiques this rigid class system without ever being preachy. She shows us the absurdities and the injustices through the characters' interactions and internal thoughts, rather than outright statements.
She shows the practical realities. For a woman, social standing dictated everything. The entail on the Longbourn estate means the Bennet girls will be destitute upon their father's death. Marriage isn't just about love. It's about economic survival and maintaining a respectable position.
That's a crucial point, Isaac. The entail is the engine of Mrs. Bennet's frantic marriage hunting. It's not just a plot device. It's a stark reminder of the vulnerability of women in that era. Without a husband, what were their options?
Exactly. It makes Mrs. Bennet's behavior, while still exasperating, a little more understandable, doesn't it? She's trying to secure her daughter's futures, however clumsily. She's a caricature, yes, but her fears are rooted in a very real threat.
Understandable, perhaps, but her methods are still deplorable. Her inability to govern her younger daughters, especially Lydia, directly contributes to the family's near ruin. A good mother would have instilled some sense of decorum, some self-control.
Which brings us to parenting, or the lack thereof, in the Bennet household. Mr. Bennet retreats to his library. Mrs. Bennet indulges her nerves and her youngest daughters. It's a recipe for disaster.
Their parenting styles are a study in contrasts, and both are ultimately detrimental. Mr. Bennet's intellectual superiority doesn't translate into active guidance, and Mrs. Bennet's emotional chaos leads to recklessness. Jane and Elizabeth miraculously rise above it, but Kitty and Lydia fall victim.
Mary, too, in her own way, falls victim. She's ignored, left to her books and her moralizing, which makes her insufferable in a different way. It's a testament to the idea that intellect alone isn't enough. Proper guidance and affection are essential.
And how much of Elizabeth's independence and intelligence do you think is a reaction to her parents' shortcomings? She sees their flaws clearly, and perhaps consciously or unconsciously strives to be different.
Oh, absolutely. She's the observer in the family, the one who truly sees. She learns from their mistakes, from Jane's passive nature, from Lydia's recklessness. Her sharp wit and keen judgment are honed in the chaotic environment of Longbourn.
She's a survivor, really. She learns to navigate the social minefield with a clear head and a sharp tongue, precisely because she can't rely on her parents for much more than a roof over her head. Her intelligence is a shield and a weapon.
Let's talk about the humor in the novel. It's so subtle, so biting at times. We've mentioned Mr. Collins and Mrs. Bennet, but what other instances of Austen's humor really stand out to you?
Mr. Bennet's exchanges with Mrs. Bennet are always hilarious. His dry wit, his perfectly timed sarcastic remarks, often lost on his wife, are just brilliant. You mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least. It's so deliciously passive-aggressive.
Lady Catherine de Bourgh is a comedic masterpiece. Her absurd pronouncements, her unshakable belief in her own wisdom, her attempts to impose her will on everyone around her. She's so over the top that she becomes a figure of ridicule, despite her formidable position.
And Elizabeth's internal monologue, too. Her observations of others, her witty retorts, often unsaid, contribute so much to the novel's comedic tone. She finds amusement in the absurdities of human behavior, which is part of her charm.
Her delight in anything ridiculous. It's one of her defining characteristics. It allows her to laugh off insults, to maintain her spirit in frustrating situations. It's a vital coping mechanism and a source of joy for the reader.
It also, at times, leads to her being blind to actual malice, like with Wickham. Her initial amusement at Darcy's rudeness morphed into a deep-seated prejudice, so her delight in anything ridiculous isn't always an entirely positive trait. It can mask a lack of serious discernment.
A fair point. It's not a perfect trait, but it certainly makes her a more engaging character. Let's move to something a bit more abstract. The concept of true elegance or good breeding versus mere outward show. How does Austen explore that?
Oh, that's a beautiful thread throughout the novel. The Bingley sisters, for instance, are outwardly fashionable and polished, but they are consistently snobbish, manipulative, and unkind. They lack true benevolence and genuine manners.
While Darcy, despite his initial haughtiness, demonstrates true breeding through his integrity, his sense of honor, and his eventual generosity. His actions with Lydia are a testament to his character, not his social standing.
And Elizabeth, too, though her family lacks the polish and social connections of the upper echelons, possesses an innate good sense, moral integrity, and spirited independence that makes her truly elegant, even if she doesn't fit the superficial standards of the time.
It's a critique of superficiality, isn't it? Austen is saying that true worth comes from character, from morality, from genuine kindness and integrity, not from titles, wealth, or fashionable dresses. It's a very democratic message for its time.
It's a subtle subversion of the aristocratic ideals. She shows us that wealth and birth can often breed arrogance and emptiness, while true virtue can be found in unexpected places. It's about substance over show.
That makes me think of Charlotte Lucas again. She consciously chooses a marriage that is comfortable over one that is passionate or based on true affection. Is Austen criticizing her or merely presenting a realistic choice?
I think it's the latter. Austen is too nuanced to simply condemn Charlotte. She's showing the limitations of women's choices, and Charlotte is making a rational decision within those constraints. It's a pragmatic act, not necessarily a moral failing.
It's a mirror. It forces Elizabeth and the reader to consider the alternatives to a love match. Charlotte's life is certainly not glamorous or exciting, but it's stable and secure. For many, that was the ultimate goal. It's not a condemnation. It's a cold, hard fact of life.
So the novel explores the ideal of romantic love, while simultaneously acknowledging the harsh realities of economic necessity. It's a careful balance, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's not a fairy tale. It's a realistic portrayal of love, navigating the very real complexities of class, money, and social expectations. That's what makes the happy endings so satisfying. They feel earned within that intricate social fabric.
And it's not a simple love conquers all message. Love has to be accompanied by self-awareness, personal growth, and a willingness to overcome one's own flaws. Darcy's money doesn't hurt either.
Always bringing it back to the money, Isaac. But you're right, it's a multifaceted victory. Let's talk about the language itself. Austen's prose is so distinctive. What do you find most striking about her writing style in Pride and Prejudice?
The wit, first and foremost. The sparkling dialogue, the clever turns of phrase, the masterful use of irony. Every sentence feels perfectly crafted, precise, and full of meaning. She says so much with such elegant economy.
Her directness. She doesn't waste words. She cuts right to the heart of character and motive, often with a dry, understated humor that is incredibly effective. Her descriptions are vivid without being overly flowery.
I find her command of indirect discourse fascinating. We often get characters' thoughts and feelings filtered through a narrator who is both insightful and occasionally ironic, especially when detailing Mrs. Bennet's or Mr. Collins's absurdities. It allows for both intimacy and critical distance.
And the way she builds characters through their dialogue, you really get a sense of who they are, not just by what they say, but how they say it. Mr. Collins's formal, repetitive speeches, Lady Catherine's imperious pronouncements, Elizabeth's quick, intelligent responses, it's all so telling.
She's a master of showing, not telling. We don't need paragraphs of description for Darcy to understand his pride. We get it from a few lines of dialogue. It's incredibly efficient and impactful writing.
Given that the book was initially written much earlier in Austen's career, but then revised later, Do you think that combination of youthful vigor and mature revision is evident? Does it make the plot or character development feel particularly strong?
Oh, absolutely. The preface mentions that, and I think it's spot on. The initial spark, the strong central characters and their core conflict, feels very much like a fresh, youthful energy. But the intricate plotting, the seamless integration of subplots like Lydia's elopement, and the nuanced psychological depth, that feels like the work of a more mature, experienced writer.
It has a tighter structure than some of her other novels, in my opinion. Emma, for all its brilliance, has some digressions. Pride and Prejudice feels more focused, every scene serving a purpose and advancing the character arcs or the plot. The revision clearly tightened it.
The pacing is excellent. It moves along briskly, even with all the detailed social observation. And the way she handles the dual narratives of Jane Bingley and Elizabeth Darcy, weaving them together, is masterful. You never lose sight of either story.
It's just so satisfying. The slow burn of Elizabeth and Darcy, the gradual unveiling of their true characters, the overcoming of obstacles. It's a perfectly executed romantic comedy, but with so much more substance.
It's a blueprint, really. So many romantic comedies that came after owe a huge debt to Pride and Prejudice. The enemies to lovers trope, the witty banter, the grand gesture, it's all there, refined to perfection.
Speaking of perfection, many people consider this Austen's finest work. Do you agree, or do you have a soft spot for Emma or Sense and Sensibility?
For me, it has to be Pride and Prejudice. While Emma is brilliant in its own way, the sheer wit, the iconic characters, and the immensely satisfying emotional arc of Elizabeth and Darcy just elevate this one. It's a more universal story, I think.
I'm with Albert on this. Pride and Prejudice is a tighter, more impactful narrative. Emma can be a bit meandering at times, and Emma Woodhouse herself, while ultimately charming, is far more irritating than Elizabeth Bennet. I prefer my heroines to be intelligent from the outset.
I can see that. Elizabeth's initial flaw isn't a lack of intelligence, but a misuse of it, whereas Emma is initially rather clueless. It makes Elizabeth's journey more about reevaluating her judgments rather than learning basic empathy.
And the side characters are just so memorable here. Mr. Collins, Lady Catherine, Mrs. Bennet, they're not just caricatures. They're fully formed, even if exaggerated, comedic masterpieces.
Agreed. They serve the plot and highlight the themes perfectly. Even Mary, with her sententious pronouncements, has a clear role in providing a foil to her more lively sisters. Though, I do admit, I wish Austen had done a little more with her beyond consigning her to a life with one of Mr. Phillips's clerks.
That's a fascinating thought, Isaac. What do you think would have been a more fitting or interesting fate for Mary? Or for Kitty, for that matter? They both feel a little underdeveloped compared to the others.
Perhaps Mary could have found intellectual companionship, even if not romantic love. Someone who appreciated her earnest, if sometimes clumsy, philosophical inclinations. Or maybe she could have truly learned from her sister's experiences and become less self-important.
I think a true character arc for Mary would have been her realizing the limitations of theoretical morality in the face of actual human behavior. Instead, she remains largely static, a figure of gentle mockery. Kitty, on the other hand, seems to benefit from living with Jane and Bingley, escaping Lydia's influence, but we only get a fleeting glimpse of that.
It's a testament to Austen's genius that even the minor characters spark such discussion. Let's pivot slightly. What do you think Austen is ultimately saying about happiness? Is it found in love, in security, in personal growth, or a combination of all three?
It's definitely a combination, but with a strong emphasis on personal growth and genuine affection. Charlotte finds security, but we don't necessarily see her as happy. Jane and Bingley find happiness in uncomplicated love and mutual good nature. But Elizabeth and Darcy's happiness feels the most profound because it's built on overcoming significant personal flaws and truly understanding and respecting each other.
Happiness, for Austen, seems to be a delicate balance. A practical foundation is necessary, certainly, which is where Darcy's fortune comes in. But true, lasting happiness requires intellectual and emotional compatibility, a shared sense of humor, and mutual respect. Without the latter,
Even the largest fortune would likely lead to a miserable existence, as we see with Mr. and Mrs. Bennet.
So it's not simply romantic love or simply financial stability. It's the synergy of a clear mind, an open heart, and a secure position that truly allows for happiness. It's a very holistic view, really.
And it's progressive for its time, too, arguing for women to have a voice in their own destinies, to choose partners based on more than just convenience or status, even while acknowledging the constraints they faced. Elizabeth's refusal of both Colin's and Darcy's first proposal speaks volumes about her desire for a true partnership.
It's not just a call for romantic love, though. It's a call for discernment, for not settling, but also for self-reflection. Elizabeth and Darcy both had to shed their flaws to find that ideal. It's a very active form of happiness, not a passive one.
That active pursuit of self-improvement is key. It's what differentiates them from many other characters in the book who remain static in their follies. The Bennets, the Bingley sisters, even Wickham, they never truly learn or change.
And that's why they don't find the same kind of lasting contentment. Their limitations are internal, not just external circumstances. It's a powerful message about responsibility for one's own character.
Yes, the truly foolish or selfish characters are generally unredeemed. Austen isn't interested in giving them growth. They serve as foils, illustrating the paths not taken or the consequences of moral failings.
It's quite striking how little moral judgment Austen explicitly injects into her narration, yet the characters' fates speak volumes about her underlying moral framework. She lets their actions and consequences do the talking.
She's a master of showing rather than telling, as you said earlier, Isaac. Her subtle wit and irony allow the reader to draw their own conclusions about the character's moral standing, guided by her carefully chosen details and dialogue.
It's a very intelligent form of storytelling. She respects the reader enough to allow them to come to their own judgments, rather than spelling everything out, though it's clear who she favors and who she condemns through their actions.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on the idea of independent women in Austen's time. Elizabeth is often seen as a proto-feminist figure. Do you agree? And if so, what makes her so?
Absolutely. She refuses to marry for convenience, she speaks her mind, she isn't intimidated by rank or power, and she demands intellectual and emotional connection. She challenges societal norms for women of her time, even if implicitly. Her independence of thought is truly remarkable.
She's proto-feminist in her independent spirit, but she still operates within the confines of her society. She needs to marry. That's not something she questions. What she does question is who she marries and on what terms. She seeks an equal partnership, which was radical for the time.
Her wit and intelligence are also markers of her independence. She's not content to be merely ornamental. She engages with the world intellectually, forming her own opinions and defending them.
Her sharp tongue, her ability to spar with Darcy and Lady Catherine, her refusal to be silenced, these are all qualities that make her stand out. She's not just beautiful, she's formidable, and that's what truly attracts Darcy. He respects her mind.
Darcy doesn't want a submissive wife. He wants a partner who can challenge him, stimulate him, and match his intellect. Elizabeth is the only one who can do that, which is why their union is so compelling. It's a meeting of equals, even if their social standing is initially disparate.
So, in a way, Elizabeth's independence actually enables the perfect match rather than hindering it. Her refusal to conform ultimately leads her to the partner who truly values her for who she is. It's a wonderful inversion of typical romantic tropes.
It's why the novel has endured. It's not just a love story. It's a celebration of character, integrity, and the courage to be true to oneself, even when societal pressures push you in other directions.
A celebration, perhaps, but also a very realistic depiction of the challenges and compromises women faced. It's not an easy journey, even for someone as intelligent and spirited as Elizabeth.
And on that note, I think we've thoroughly dissected the many facets of Pride and Prejudice. Albert, Isaac, thank you both for such a stimulating discussion.
Always a pleasure, Aristo. It's a book that never gets old.
Indeed, it's surprisingly robust.
For our listeners today, what struck you most about Elizabeth's journey of self-discovery or Darcy's transformation? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's the intellectual equivalent of a perfectly executed first dance at the Meryton Assembly.
Very well put, Aristo.
If you insist.
We'll be back next time with another classic. But until then, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep discussing. Goodbye.